We are delighted to have Mayor Walsh join us to speak to the Wharf District Council. Once again, it's great to have him as a regular participant in our process and for his leadership in making this the best city in the country. Mayor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Mark. And I have a few remarks here just to go over some notes, just so I can cheat a little bit, and then I'm going to take any questions, all questions that you might have for me. First of all, it's great to be back here. Don't tell anyone else. You're the only Civic Association Council that I do on a yearly basis. I went to the Columbia Seminole Civic in the neighborhood I grew up in. I went to this Civic Association meeting last year. It was the first time I was back as mayor of Boston. So it took me 5 years to get back there. They didn't like that. They grilled me for 45 minutes, but it was fun. So I just want to say that. I want to thank Mark for your leadership. I want to thank Suzanne for your leadership and friendship as well. And I want to thank everyone at the Wharf District Council for the work you do. This neighborhood's special because of the people in it. This neighborhood's special because you keep an eye on the community. I want to thank your elected officials that were here earlier. I know Aaron Mickelitz was here, Ways and Means Chair, who's busy at the State House, and Eddie Flynn. Actually, he left to go over to a peace walk over in Southie, which I'm going to go over to, I think, after this. I want to thank Chris Osgood as well. I think last year I was a little late as well, and Chris Osgood covered for me last year, so thank you for that. I want to give a shout out to Eric and the Aquarium for the incredible stuff you do here in the city, but thank you for hosting us tonight. And I want to give Jesse Brackenberry a shout out as well for what you're doing on the Greenway Conservancy, and thank you for that. All the different things happening in the neighborhood. This is a critical time in Boston when you think about our city. We have the largest population in Boston right now in over half a century, with 700,000 people, and we're growing every day. We've added about 20,000 new jobs to our city in my first 5 years as mayor, and there's no reason why I don't think we'll probably do the same coming this year, which is a tremendous amount of people. We're a national leader in many different areas, and we're a global leader in many different areas. And we're there because of the people that live in the city and the different organizations we have, and our police department and our city agencies, our transportation department, but also the residents that are here. So I want to thank you for that. The Wharf Council District, the Wharf District actually is a big part of that. You're an anchor to our economy. You're the front door to our city in a lot of different ways, to visitors. You're the gateway to the waterfront, and that's part of the attraction to our city. When I have companies that come into our city, to move here, to move their business here, they come here because of the amenities. They come here because of the scenery. They come here, some of them for the weather. They come for different reasons. They come here, and this neighborhood is a big part of that. And I want to thank you for that. The council has done some amazing work, and I think some of you know this already. I won't repeat myself too much from last year, but my beginning activism in politics began as a member of the Columbia Seminole Civic Association. And I was a young kid. I was probably about 19, 20 years old. I used to come to the meetings every Monday night at the Little House, the first Monday of the month. And I was the guy in the back that got involved in every single issue, and controversial issues. I'd be fighting and yelling about development and screaming about different things. And then I wanted to get involved in the process, and I became executive board member and the president. And I ran the Columbia Seminole Civic for a couple of years. And when I was done as president of the Civic Association, I ran an organization called DANA, which is the Deutsche Rally Neighborhood Associations. It no longer exists, and it was a collaboration of all the different civics. And I appreciate the work that the leadership of the civic does, and I appreciate the members that come every week, every month, because that's what keeps the neighborhood straight, that's what keeps the neighborhood honest, and that's what you really keep your hands on the pulse. And I appreciate the work you've done. This council has done an amazing job with so many different areas of this city. The Greenway out front. The Greenway out front is absolutely beautiful. As you can see, you've seen the growth of it. And those of you that have been around for the Big Dig and the Central Artery Project, and really what it did was, I think that some people take credit, or not credit, but some people think the biggest accomplishment was to take the Central Artery and put it underground and through the tunnel. What I actually think the biggest accomplishment of the Big Dig was the fact that it connected Boston to each other. And it was really an amazing connection when you think about this. There's no obstacles or barriers now between the financial district and this building, and the financial district and downtown crossing, and even if you want to go to Copley and different areas like that, those barriers are broken down now. The new bid, the Greenway bid, is doing incredible work in keeping the Greenway as beautiful as it is. municipal harbor plan that's being, I guess, going through the state process. The people in this room, many of you in this room, had a lot to say and a lot to do with that plan and moving that plan forward. This council played a big role in that. Development that's happening, there's a proposed development for my entire 6 years, and prior to me, I think the prior 20 years of the garage across the street. And I don't know if the garage will be built someday, but right now the process is it even connects opening up the neighborhood potentially to 50% cover, and there's an opportunity there. I know that's still going through the process, not finalized. I'm just talking where the negotiations have been going, and really thinking about, very thoughtful about the zoning and how does it affect the community, how does it affect the residents of Harbor Tower, how does it affect this very building here and the growth of the aquarium and the life that lives in this aquarium. The climate work that we're doing work in the climate plan. We took a trip to New York to see what happened after Sandy. We're down there, a couple of people in the room went to it about a month and a half ago, and what they did in New York is they built these barriers around the buildings. So when if they get another type of hurricane and they're worried about sea level rise, these barriers are going to come up out of the ground and protect the building. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't protect the streets. It doesn't protect the outlets. It doesn't protect the utilities. It'll protect the building. And that's great for the financial institutions down there, but really it doesn't protect the entire community. And what we're doing here with Resilient Boston Harbor is we're building a seawall around the entire Boston Harbor, and we're covering it with grass and trees and pathways and walkways and bike lanes, and we're really going to create something special in different parts of the waterfront. If you had had a chance to go over to Martin Richard Playground, if you go over there, take a walk over there, and stand in the middle of the playground, and what you see is a playground, what a lot of people see is a playground, but what it also is a seawall. As the sea level rises and comes in, it won't go down Seaport Boulevard, because there's a seawall built inside of that project. And it's able to protect the coast and protect the South Boston waterfront. We're going to do that all along the 4-Point Channel area, and we're looking at how do we do that around the Inner Harbor and creating opportunities here. And some of you in this room will be very instrumental in that, part of that. But we're going to continue to strengthen our entire coastline. And we also are going to bring the coastline back to people. One of the criticisms I heard very early on is that we walled off the waterfront. People can't have access to the waterfront, they can't get there. And if you look at the way it is today, that might be the case in a lot of places. But when our plan is done, our 47-mile plan is done, that the waterfront will be connected. And people will be connected back to the waterfront, like they are outside the front door here, like they are at Christopher Columbus Park, like they are in certain parts of the South Boston waterfront, like they are in Castle Island, like they are in other places in East Boston. We're going to make sure we connect people back, and that's also going to deal with sea level rise and climate change, something that's really important. Transportation improvements. What do I say about transportation? The new ferry is moving hundreds of people around the harbor. That's a positive. Connect Historic Boston's complete. We have a little bit of controversy in the very beginning with bike lanes, but I think that seems to have gone away a little bit. We have bike lanes. We have dedicated bike lanes for the bicyclists in the room to be happy. For the cars that are driving in the room, we have car lanes. People in the cars are driving, and we also have, if you want to walk on the sidewalk, you walk on the sidewalk. And it really is one of those things that we have to try and think of doing more. I think in this year's budget, we have another 9 miles of roadway roughly that we're going to be doing separated bike lanes. We're trying these dedicated bus lanes. We did one in Rosendale. We're doing another one in Brighton. We're going to be looking at other parts of the city that have dedicated bus lanes so that MBTA and school buses and bikes can kind of go in those lanes and keep the lanes free. Chris already talked a little bit about the bridge that we're working on the bridge across the street. Suzanne's been on the task force, and I want to thank her for that. The bridge isn't finalized yet, but the Northern Ave Bridge stood for 75 years in the city of Boston. The new bridge will stand even longer. The next generation, couple generations of people won't have to worry about it. They'll have to improve it. But it's something that's really needed, I think, to make better connections to the South Boston waterfront. And I kind of view it as the last obstacle of connecting the South Boston waterfront to the Greenway, to the financial district, to downtown crossing, to Boston Common, to Back Bay, to Beacon Hill, to Copley, and really create opportunities. So we're making investments there. But one of the things that we're also doing the street reconstruction of State Street that'll be reducing congestion and making commuters smoother ride, hopefully for bicyclists, cars, and people walking, pedestrians. But one of the things that I just want to talk real quick, on the city side, MBTA, with dedicated bus lanes, we have free T passes for students. All students in the city of Boston now will have free MBTA passes, not just public school kids, and partially it's going to be all school kids in charter schools, private schools, parochial schools, public schools. So if they're going to work, they can take a pass and work in town. We're able to pay some money there. And we created a transit team that Chris Bright touched upon, which I'm not going to go into. But I will talk briefly about the MBTA. When I think about Boston and I think about the growth of our city, and we've grown an awful lot in the last few years, transportation is one of the biggest issues we have to deal with. And some of my frustration over the last couple of months has been with the MBTA. I've been pretty quiet on it, haven't made any really noise about it. I've been listening and working with the governor on it and making investments there. But the derailments that happened, the 2 derailments that happened about 3 months ago were kind of the last straw, because we need a system that works. We need a system that's reliable. We need a short-term, and they're doing it now. They're making short-term fixes to the MBTA to get it back on track and moving, literally back on track and moving right. And then there's long-term investments that have to be made. And we have to fast-track those investments. We can't have a city that doesn't have a reliable number A1 transit authority. I don't know where anyone in this room was during the Olympic conversation, but I was for the Olympics. And I was in the Olympics for a bunch of different reasons. And one of the reasons I was for the Olympics, there was 2 reasons really, was we were going to build housing that was going to be turned into affordable housing when it was done. And 2, we need to have a reliable transit system. And there was a deadline, 2024. And as soon as that deadline went away, the deadline and the urgency of making those improvements went away. We need a deadline. People need to demand a deadline, and I'm demanding a deadline from the MBTA, that they have a deadline, because they have to be up to speed. Because if we continue to grow as a city, or we just want to move our people around the city as a city, it can't just be ferries, it has to be the reliable transit authority. And also bringing people into the city of Boston, we need to have a reliable system that reaches out to the suburbs to bring people into the city of Boston as well. Because the highways are packed, the roads are packed, Uber is packing our roads, Lyft is packing our roads, and we can't continue to move forward. So I'm going to continue to push on the transit side. I talked a little bit about the environmental piece of it. We are working on a plan. I'll answer questions if you have questions on that later. We're also still making investments in our park system, historic investments in our park system in the city of Boston. This budget that we just passed is making historic investments in parks. We're making 10% of our capital budget in this budget that we just passed for the city will go towards resiliency projects. So we're making a commitment there. 1% of the capital budget goes towards our arts and culture programs to make sure we continue to be thriving and innovative when it comes to arts and culture. We made the largest investment in public schools this year in the history. The investment was mainly due to universal pre-kindergarten. It was also due to making sure that we have nurses in every school and making sure we have counselors in schools. So we don't have it today. We're going to have it over the course of this school year coming. We're also building 30 new cafes called My Way Cafes in school. By the start of school year, 60 of our schools will have fresh, healthy food for our kids. And these cafes, you were seeing less waste in food, less being thrown out, more choices for kids, and kids really having opportunities. Anyone that's children in school, if you have a My Way Cafe, you know what I mean. If you don't have one, that's coming. And you're going to see the improvements that we have in our school. Our police department's here. We just graduated one of the most diverse classes in the history of this police department. And I was very happy to see that. And if you look at the crime numbers in our city, and I'm sure they might have already told you, and I apologize for repeating it, major crime is down 10%. Our homicide rate, we have 22 homicides compared to 29 this time last year. The only area that we're up in crime this year in the city of Boston is shootings. And for the last 20 days, we've had a very difficult run of shootings that happened in the city of Boston. Most of them have been multiple shooting incidents that we've had, and I talked to the commissioner about it today. We're working to bring that down, because it's important to have a safe city. It's important to have places that you feel safe, that you shouldn't feel dangerous, that it's dangerous going around. So we're working in those different areas. The opioid crisis and the homelessness situation, we're getting stronger on homelessness. We'll be able to house nearly 1,900 chronically homeless people since I became mayor. We're in the process right now of working with Pine Street Inn. I'm raising $10 million. We're going to build 250 units of housing in Jamaica Plain with wraparound service for homeless people. That project will start construction, I believe, sometime at the end of this year. And by next year, we'll be moving people in off from the street into these houses with wraparound services to help them get back on their feet. The opioid crisis is not getting better. It's not going to be solved by government. It's going to be solved by all of us working together. If you drive by Milnina and Mass Ave, you'll see a whole bunch of people there. It's a sad situation. It's a place where, for some reason, it's attracting every user in Eastern Massachusetts that's coming there. But we did increase our budget for addiction services by 15% this year. That we're going to be putting more counselors out there and working with people, trying to get people into detox and programs. My intention is to rebuild the Long Island Bridge, to rebuild the bridge so we can create the first of its kind recovery campus in an urban part of America. And the Long Island Bridge being built and the recovery campus being put on the island will help residents of Quincy and Squantum who are fighting this. Will help people from Boston and other places. It's not just for Boston residents, it's for people who are struggling with addiction, that we're looking for long-term recovery homes we're going to be putting on the island. So we're moving forward on that. We're designing the bridge right now. We are going through legal battles on that situation, but we're going to continue to move forward on that. I'm going to start talking there and take questions. I know a lot of people have questions. Usually that's where we get our information. Thank you for coming out. And anything you got. And if I don't have an answer for you, I'll find one. Jesse.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate your kind words about the greenway, but I don't have a question. What I wanted to do is put it in context for people in the room, which is that the Greenway Conservancy is in better, more stable financial shape than it has ever been as a result of a deal that was struck 2 years ago. And I want to thank you for your leadership in that. That deal doesn't happen without people stepping forward. And Mr. Mayor, we are in the situation we're in, and the park that this room loves is in the position that it's in because of the leadership you showed.
Thank you. Those of you that don't know what Jesse's referring to, the sale of Winthrop Square Garage netted the city of Boston about $150 million one-time payment. When the new building's being built there, it's going to generate about $10 million in real estate tax every year. It's going to create new jobs. It's a very clean building. But the $150 million, what we did with the $150 million is we took $100 million of it, I think it was $100 million initially, and we put $5 million into the Conservancy. We put $28 million into reconstruction of Boston Common, $28 million into reconstruction of Franklin Park, $25 million into Old Colony Housing Development Phase 3, which we're going to redo the housing development over in Old Colony in South Boston. $10 million into a redevelopment of Orient Heights in East Boston. This is money that we're not getting from the federal government, and we're investing it back in these different areas. And then we also were able to come up with a downtown plan, a downtown planning study, which we're in the midst of beginning now, to talk about what the downtown core is going to look like in the city of Boston. The bid down there does some great work, but we're going to assist them by doing this study. I wish I had about 150 more Winthrop Square garages to sell, but Kevin White sold it all. And whatever he didn't sell, Ray Flynn sold, so there's not much left. But I wish we had some more, because it really is an opportunity. When you get that one-time infusion of money, you don't get it that often, the money went right back into parks, open space, and preservation. That's where the money all went. And we're gonna get another $50 million when the building's complete. We haven't decided where that money's gonna go, but I guarantee you the money's gonna go into probably housing, because we need money for housing. Yes?
Well, for the last 2 times that I've been here, and I've enjoyed listening to your comments, you're talking about studying the design of the North Avenue Bridge. So it's been 3 years of studying. Do we have a deadline on that?
Oh yeah, no.
What is it?
So we were getting
We were studying. There was a process, which I'll turn over to Chris in a second. We were looking at what type of bridge would go there. We were doing design review and we put a task force together. And now we're at the point of.
So we will be making a decision later this year about those fundamental elements. What's the style of the bridge and what's the width of the bridge? And that is coming very soon. The mayor shares your urgency around this and has been very clear with us. My guess is final design would be probably a year plus from now, then out to bid, maybe 2 years from now.
So you're saying the design process will be done in a year and a half?
We will be able to do it about a year and a half.
And how about the fundraising? If you say the budget is between 50 million and 150 million, that's a big gap. What are the plans for that?
We've put some money in the budget. We've already
Yeah,
put a
that's the
placeholder,
50, yeah.
and we'll put the rest in, and we'll pay, we will probably, by this time next year in our budget, capital budget, Long Island Bridge will be in there, not Long Island, Northern Ave Bridge will be in there, fully funded. Oh, we're building the bridge back, and I'm gonna push to get the timeline moved up. I would like to have it done as soon as possible. A couple of and when Chris talks about the design will be done, it's the architectural drawings he needs. The architecture, where the bolts go and where everything goes, that's what takes so long. The design will be complete. And the big battle is now, not a battle, but it's a battle, it's gonna be a conversation. Some folks want cars on it, some folks want people on it, some people want bus lanes on it. So we're gonna have those conversations. I personally think we have to have some sort of transportation on the bridge, along with dedicated bike lanes, dedicated pedestrian lanes, and actually I'd like to have outdoor shopping areas on it as well, as a gateway into the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You mentioned Uber and Lyft talking at the roads. Boston seems to be a city that is more less disposed to working with Uber and Lyft than other cities in the US. Is that a fair comment? And what are you doing to obviously Uber and Lyft are here?
Yeah. I don't think necessarily it's a fair comment because we have zero control over Uber and Lyft. In 2017, I don't know the 18 numbers, 37 million Uber and Lyft trips in the city of Boston alone. We have zero oversight over Uber and Lyft. We can't regulate them. We can't do anything. We're working a pilot program with them now in the Fenway area of dropping and picking people up. But I mean, I think that some of the drivers that literally driving down the street on Tremont Street, literally just stop the car and let people out. And it just, you can't have. So we have to figure out better way. Cabs can't do that. So we have to figure out better ways of working with them. The governor is talking about filing legislation. I'd like to have a little more regulation on it so that we can come up with and have these pick up and drop off areas where people can pick up and drop off. I mean, it's a brilliant way of transportation. I wish I thought of it. Hitting a button on an app, 2 minutes later a car pulls up, you jump in the car, off you go. But I just think that we have to have a little more oversight about drop off, pick up, and as we implement things as we move forward. But it is brilliant. And then also, I don't appreciate the surge pricing. The day the red line went down at JFK, the derailment, people were getting picked up there and being driven in town, and they would charge $100 for a ride. That's just uncalled for. The surge pricing. I appreciate surge pricing a little bit in different areas. If you're, Fenway Park, or you're leaving a game, but don't rob somebody on it. So I get concerned about that as well. And the city is getting 10 cents a ride for 3 years, and after that, the money all goes to the state. So that's another issue we have. And they're using our roads, and they're using our amenities, and all of that. So that's what I'm talking about that way. All right. Question on the back? Somebody had a hand up? Yeah.
First, I just want to echo Jesse's compliments in terms of the support that you've given parks and open spaces in the city. It's vital for all the growing population, and you've gotten straight A's as far as I'm concerned on that report card. However, it's obvious that we have transportation issues, and Boston has been repeatedly identified as the most congested urban city in the country in terms of traffic issues. And I just want to know, what can we do as a city to do that? And Governor Baker seems to think that we have all the money we need to fix our transit problems. I want to know if you share his opinion on that and what the city can do independent of the state to solve our traffic problems.
The study, the report that came out that where the most congested traffic is the way they put that numbers together, I guess it could be argued if we had the mayor of LA here, my friend Eric Garcetti, he'd tell me he's worse than we are, and he can have the worst, but we're still bad. I don't think we have enough money to deal with all the transportation issues we have to deal with in the Commonwealth. I think that we have issues around the MBTA. We have issues around expansion of the commuter rail that we want to do, I think we should do. And we also have roads and bridges that need to be repaired. So I think that, the governor, I know he says, I think we have enough to improve the T, but the governor and myself went down to Washington about 6 months ago to have conversations with Republicans and Democrats in the Congress and the Senate to talk about an infrastructure transportation bill. At the time we went down there, there'd been a meeting the weekend before with the President Trump, with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer about agreeing on a $1.5 to $2 trillion infrastructure bill. And the agreement was there. They all agreed this is what the bill should be, how big it should be. We were there during the intermediate week. trying to advocate that we want the biggest possible we can get, and we want to get the money. We'll figure out how to spend the money when you get into the state, but any investment, whether it's a Cape Cod bridge or it's a highway, whatever it might be, as long as money's being spent in Massachusetts, I'm fine with it. Boston will get some as well. The next week, there was a follow-up meeting at the White House to talk about how to pay for it, and the idea was, Trump was advocating for 25-cent gas tax, at least privately. The meeting lasted 2 minutes because he got mad because the Democrats might have, I think they petitioned him for his taxes or something, and he got mad, the meeting was over. So they never had the conversation around infrastructure. Investments can be made. We are raising, in our last budget, we just doubled, not double, but in some cases double the fines for illegally parking in the city of Boston. You park in front of a fire hydrant, you park in a crosswalk, you overstay your meter, you park in different places, you get a higher fine. That money is going to raise $5 million for the city of Boston. We've made a commitment to take that $5 million and invest it in transportation and climate resilient projects. So that's, the money's dedicated, earmarked. So when you get a ticket, you might not be happy with it, but the money you're paying us is not going to the general fund. We don't have this, the state, I think the state needs another pot of money to be able to have dedicated revenue for transportation projects. I think if you had $20 billion, you could spend it on our infrastructure in the Commonwealth. And I think that that's needed there. And I think the MBTA, they put aside $8 billion to fund through bonding MBTA projects. The issue that I want to see happen with the MBTA is, where are those projects and why aren't they being built today? Why aren't they going out to bid? What's the design for them? Are we going to do anything with the red line? We can do anything with the orange line, with the blue line, the green line, the bus lines, those projects. We've talked about it, but there's been no investment made yet. The commitment has been made to spend the money. But here we are in July, we're missing this construction cycle. So even if you get the drawings drawn and bid out, you're talking next year. And if you don't start working on that today, then next year is going to come and the money's not going to be spent again. So you need to get those plans out. That's why I don't differ with the governor. I know the governor is pushing this hard, and I support him for that. But I don't think the urgency by the MBTA is there yet. And I don't like beating up agencies, because I was a former state representative and I don't like beating up agencies. That's the last thing I want to do as a public official. But I think in this particular case, they need to be pushed.
I don't understand why we don't have enough, we don't obviously have any traffic cops blocking the stopping river line here in the city south. Bus station here, the seaport, it's just, people just jam the intersections and nobody moves. And it's actually, well, it's 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, they can't be out there. Every emergency, we don't have traffic cops out there.
Because we don't have enough cops. It's a state law. It has to be police officer direct traffic in Massachusetts law, general law.
Mayor,
you can't have.
Mayor,
Yes.
can you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. The question is, why can't we have more police enforcement in traffic enforcement by police officers or by other people that are trained in enforcement of traffic in our intersections, whether it's down the Surface Artery, Seaport Boulevard, wherever it is in the city of Boston. And the two-part answer to that is, number one, state law is very, we don't have flagmen, and we can't have other people do enforcement. In certain cases, we can have, I believe, the sheriff's office and some other folks that can do it, but they have to be sworn police personnel, or sheriff's office, not sworn police, but they're sworn. And we don't have enough officers to cover everything that we have. The last class we put on, I thought at the end of the class we'd be up about 100 officers over. It'd be the first time in 35, 40 years we're above the number of 2,100. We got over it now by 15, but as soon as the new class came on, we had so many retirements happening. We're only up 15 over the last class. In this coming budget, we're putting on 2 more police classes. We're trying to catch up for 30 years of not adding to the bottom line. We have 120,000 new people living in the city of Boston, working in the city of Boston in the last 5 years. We have 50,000 new people living in the city of Boston. So we're not keeping up with the population that we have for our police department. And then they're spread around other places. So for example, this area here, this area covers this downtown, this neighborhood, North End, Charlestown. So it's kind of, there's a big geographic area they have. Up until this class, the last 5 or 6 classes, you didn't get any new officers, I don't think. You got 18 this last one, so you're up, they have 18 more officers here, so we can look at now possibly talking about getting more traffic enforcement out there.
That would lead to the law be changed so you can have traffic directors, traffic balance, so you don't have to be just change the variable to just direct traffic.
So the question is, could the law be changed so we could have other people doing traffic, moving traffic around? And the answer is yes, the law can be changed. The answer is it won't be changed probably because there was a bill at the legislature when I was a rep back in 2004 that didn't get out of committee. So it probably won't be changed.
One of the things
Yeah.
that the characters did, I still believe in a lot of neighbors here believe that the scale of the building things, the garage,
Yeah.
will just permanently destroy this neighborhood. It will just have such a bad effect on traffic and on the look of the neighborhood. And for no purpose, a lot of people who buy $10 million condos on that place won't even live there. They'll just be buying it to hold the, we have a lot of dark windows. People buy it, they go away for winter or for summer. And it's just people investing in places that they want far money, just like they do in New York. They buy places to park their money. Why are we giving them the best land in the city for those kind of investments?
Well, the question, or the comment is about the harbor garage and the scale or the design of the building, how it potentially could ruin or hurt the neighborhood. Let me respond a couple different ways. Number one is we don't own it. It's privately held. And so we have very little opportunity to, if I owned it, if the city of Boston owned it, we'd probably do something more modest there and think about how do we move forward. In the next 20 years, something will be built there. Because the garage at some point will probably be, I don't know how much life's left in the garage, but there's a lifespan in the garage. And I think that something will be built there. I don't think we're anywhere near approving anything yet. I know that there's been task force and people are meeting and moving forward. I came into this meeting when I first got elected mayor and I was told you're gonna build that garage and it's gonna be built here and the next 3 years it's gonna be up and you're gonna be out of office. And I'm here 6 years later and the garage still isn't built, it hasn't been approved and it's still going forward. So I'm not really sure what's gonna happen with the process, but I think that there is an opportunity here to have conversations about something's gonna be built there. And I think that, you know, just like when Harbor Towers were built, I'm sure somebody said, I don't want them built on the waterfront, it's gonna ruin it was a different waterfront then. It might have been different then. But if it was being built today, they'd say that. So I just think there's going to be a process, and you stay connected to the process. Keep talking. I mean, right now, what they're talking about. I think they're talking to the community about 50% of coverage. So already you're going to have a different view right there. You're going to be open to the public. I know there's concerns about traffic in India Row. I think is the street they were talking about. They're working through those situations. I'm not sure how much of an impact the traffic will have, but the aesthetics potentially will have a bigger impact.
Mayor, we can take one more question.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I beg to differ with you about the city has no role in this. I mean, you approved...
No, I didn't say that. The city doesn't own it.
Right, but you approved the waterfront plan that's allowing it to go forward. The city approved 60 stores there, just saying. Don't want to get into an argument about the...
Yeah, but we don't own it. He said the developer, I can't tell somebody who owns a piece of property what to propose or what not to propose on it, is what I meant.
Right, but the city could have limited the height of the facility and the zoning. I mean, we're a long way from what's getting built there, but I would just argue, you stand on Atlantic Avenue like I do every single day, and you watch the traffic sit there from 2 o'clock in the afternoon till 7 o'clock at night. I mean, for hours, it takes you 45 minutes to drive from South Station to Seaport Boulevard, most days.
I'm in there a lot going the other way.
I mean, you know what? It goes quicker the other way.
Sometimes. Not all the time.
But, I mean, it's
I know it
a
is.
huge problem, and if you take 60 stories and you dump traffic onto Atlantic Ave, I just want to know where they're going to go, number one. Number two, what can we do in terms of legislatively to empower the city around ride sharing? I mean, because the other thing is, you stand on that corner, the only thing you see are Uber and Lyft and Uber and Lyft. And I just don't understand why the state and or the city isn't willing, you go to Washington, they pay a 50-cent church.
I would love to have, we tried to get control of it. Commissioner Evans was the commissioner at the time. If you remember, we went up to the State House, we had a whole legislative package that we tried to get regulations. We wanted to regulate them. We wanted to be able to limit in certain cases. I mean, now you have cars from New York with Uber and Lyft license plates picking people up in Boston, Connecticut, Rhode Island, different places. And I would love to be able to, I'm not limit it, but regulate it. And I think that that's something, the governor had talked the other day about putting some legislation in, and we're gonna look and see what he files. And then we'll probably file some amendments to that.
I'm going to sneak one more
One more
question.
question.
Mr. Mayor, first I'd like to thank you for your commitment to climate change resiliency. Extremely important for everybody who lives on the waterfront. And my question is, do you envision some kind of a private-public partnership for the older buildings that are here that need to, do things to make themselves more resilient, even if berms, et cetera, get built around them?
They're gonna have to. As we get further down the road, and we're probably not there yet, I'd say within the next 4 or 5 years, the regulation of buildings are gonna change. The requirements in buildings are gonna change for private development. What we did in public buildings, so when we build a garage, City of Boston builds a garage, or we're building a building, we don't build that many, but we do, 100% of the parking spaces are gonna have electric outlets at them. The new buildings being built in Boston, the requirement is 25% electric parking outlets inside there, because we're looking towards electric vehicles to prepare for the future. We're gonna be looking at alternative modes of heating and cooling buildings now, or heating buildings, not cooling, but heating buildings. I think that we're gonna see a lot more regulation changing at the BPDA as time moves on regulations for buildings to be more resilient to climate change. We're also looking at, there are about, I think, 50,000 buildings in Boston that will have to be retrofitted over the next 20 years to be able to hit our goal of carbon neutral by 2050. I see some of that will be privately funded, but there probably will be, for homeowners and people like that, some public-private partnerships that'll have to go in place. We're talking retrofitting almost every single building in the city of Boston to become clean. Right now, we have a lot of carbon coming out of our buildings, and to really get to the goal we want. So for example, cleaning Boston Harbor was one goal. Those of you, and everyone in the room knows about carbon resiliency, but just a little bit on it. Cleaning Boston Harbor from the dirtiest harbor in America to the cleanest harbor in America is important. But also making sure that we dump nothing new into the harbor and that we have clean opportunities in the harbor. That's the next step. We're coming up with a plan. We're cleaning the harbor here, basically, in Boston. We're gonna reduce carbon emissions, and we're gonna build a sea level wall. But how do we make sure it stays clean is by making sure that we go around and we change the structure of these buildings that we have in downtown Boston. I'm not sure what it'll be 25 years from now, but there's gonna have to be a public-private partnership. Again, federal government, there's no public partnership there. They're not even acknowledging the fact that we have a crisis in this country. So we have to, but it's all gonna be done on city level anyway, but we have to do it, eventually we're gonna need some investments from the federal government as well. All right, thank you for the meeting. Sorry about the Harbor Tower, I should have never brought it up. I hope everyone has a great rest of summer. If you have elderly friends, neighbors, residents, people that can't get out of the house, if you could check on them this week, do a health check on them, because we're gonna get to 97 degrees. It's been humid, it's been hot, and if you know anyone, just touch base with them, just make sure they're okay, make sure their electricity's on, everything's there, just because it's gonna be a pretty tough time out there in the next few days. And once we hit our 3 days of 90-degree day, we open up our centers. We open them before then, but we'll make it official so people can go to them. So thank you very much.